So if you were dating somebody and all of a sudden they started to sound like Andrew Tate or Sneeko or just pearly things, would you continue the relationship? Well, we're about to hear from a girl who went through exactly that with her boyfriend and it ended in a breakup. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, if you want to support the channel and the message I'm putting out, I have a Patreon that is linked in the description down below. Consider becoming a patron if you want to. No pressure. Now, you might notice my voice is a little gravelly. Your girl was at a concert last night, and I had a good time. But we're here to talk about whether or not you would stay with a boyfriend who's suddenly become red-pilled. Now, I found this video on TikTok and decided to post it on Twitter. We're going to get straight into it, and then we'll talk about the details.
So my boyfriend turned red pill. And at this point, we haven't spoke for about a month. And I can't cope with the fact that someone who I saw is so compassionate and thoughtful and intelligent, so caring and open-minded, just completely did a 180. They were just so supportive and caring, and even when I would have my self-sabotaging episodes, they still loved me. They really felt like a blessing, and being with them made me realize like all the things that I needed to work on.
Okay, so far we have some details. She was dating somebody who seemingly felt perfect for her at the time and then suddenly got into, it seems, red pill content. Now, she mentions he was thoughtful and caring and sort of alludes to the fact that he might not be so anymore. So I'm curious to see how the red pill content that he found affects his personality. I think we'll get into that. She's also mentioned some red flags of her own. She said that she goes through self-sabotaging episodes. So that could also be a part of the turmoil back and forth here. Disclaimer, we do not have the boyfriend's point of view in this video, so I will never be able to speak to that. It very well could be that she is the reason that all of this is happening and why they're not talking anymore, but who knows? For now, I'm just going to take on this girl's point of view and we'll talk about it from her perspective.
But it came to a point where I started noticing differences in them. Like, I started noticing that they would talk to me like I was like their child.
Okay, so the captions say, "I'm the man, you listen to me, and you need to obey me." Now, I could see how one might glean these specific messages from red pill content. Again, I don't know whether or not he actually said this, but there's a way to have a conversation about maybe wanting more authority within your relationship. The way to do that is not to say, "I'm the man, you need to obey me." I hope we can all view that as clear, cut, dry. But I digress.
Like something that they had to have control over. And then it evolved into hypothetical arguments all the time. Like, just about the stupidest stuff about like child support and what makes a woman valuable and like what women want in a man, all that. I'm like, I don't know why you're talking to me about this.
There's a very important word there, and that is hypothetical. Sometimes we can get bogged down in hypothetical arguments that maybe are not good for our personal relationship or maybe not even founded in reality. Now, the example she mentioned, like a hypothetical argument over child support, I would find that pretty important in a relationship. That is something that as a couple, you should probably have at least a brief conversation about where you stand on that issue, just in case you end up in a situation where child support is on the table down the line. On the point of what makes women valuable, I guess that's something to discuss, particularly if your partner doesn't seem to be meeting whatever standards you have for your relationship, but I can sense that there is a particular skew when it comes to the conversation, at least how she's characterizing it. And as far as what women want in a man, it's okay to engage in generalities and talk about maybe the current state of our culture, but maybe he should recognize that he is a man who has a woman who wants him right in front of him. And if he can't see the value in that, maybe it's not the relationship for him.
And it would get so bad because it really just pried at my insecurities, especially when talking about like women whose dads left. And I would always just end up crying and asking why, like, why are you doing this? And as someone who has like poor emotional control, it took a lot to not just like blow up all the time. And it was so hard to just step back and be like, okay, that's like, he's just going through a weird phase. That's not the person who he is. It just kept progressing.
Now she's mentioned another thing. So before she said self-sabotaging episodes, now she's saying that she has poor emotional regulation skills. All of this could be affecting your relationship and leading to these outbursts. I often find that people who are already experiencing problems within their relationship will find another avenue to get a way out. And maybe for this man, it is the red pill content ideas. And he's opening up these hypothetical arguments so that he can create this back and forth and create a rift within his relationship and justify why he might not want to be there anymore. That could be a possibility.
And no matter how much I tried to improve myself and just give him what he was asking for, I felt like it just wasn't enough. I still don't understand what he was asking for, because these types of women that red pill podcast men talk shit about, like, I don't have a lot in common with. Like, I don't go out, I don't party, I don't dress really showy, I'm not a gold digger. Like, all I wanted was to just be loved by somebody. I felt like I was being torn apart. Like, I did this, but it wasn't enough. I don't know what to do.
There is merit to that, right? If you're not the person who's dressing provocatively and doing drugs and partying and sleeping with a lot of men, then there's really not much to engage with when in an argument with another person about women who do that. However, I did see a little text pop up on the screen, so let's read that quickly. This is not to say that there is anything wrong with women who party and dress how they want, or that we don't have anything in common. Women aren't the issue. Now, anytime I see a blanket statement like women aren't the issue, immediately a little red flag goes up for me. It does sort of speak to where your mind is on issues of culture. And it could be that you're a hashtag believe all women type of person, or a I support women's rights and women's wrongs type of person, because you are making a hasty generalization that on any given conflict, women aren't the issue, which of course we know is wrong. Sometimes women are the issue, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes men are the issue, and sometimes they aren't.
Oh, what to do. It just wasn't going to work for them because I was too American and I didn't understand, and the women overseas are better. And it just really broke my heart. It broke my heart so bad. And it got to the point where my family witnessed it firsthand, like what they were doing, and that's when it ended.
Now, I posted this video on Twitter. It got so many responses, and one of the most common responses was that she continues to refer to him as they. Now, she could be just like a secretly blue-haired leftist, and it just refers to him as they as just a dig about pronouns and gender culture and all this different stuff. That very well could be a possibility. It also could be that she's going through a really difficult breakup, and if you've been through a difficult breakup, you know that you kind of try to distance yourself from this person as much as possible. You don't want to hear their name, you don't want to hear no pronouns, you don't want to hear anything, and that's could be why she's referring to him as they. Who knows? Now, she mentioned that her family witnessed this behavior, and that is when the relationship officially ended. And it's probably because a family member came to her and said, hey, this is not healthy. You cannot be dealing with a person like this. And there is a rule here. Of course, there are exceptions. You could be the Romeo and Juliet in your own storyline. If multiple family members or friends, peers, people who are, well acquainted with you and know what is healthy for you and what you are like, come to you and say, I don't think this relationship is the healthiest thing for you, and I don't think that he's treating you well, and I don't think that he's right for you, 9 times out of 10. Listen. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, listen to the people who care about you, because more often than not, they are going to be correct. And yes, they do not know him or her the way that you do. They do not know the ins and outs of your relationship. But oftentimes, it takes just one moment to witness the red flags in somebody that are not good for you. And family members can see that with a little less bias and without those rose-colored glasses. So at least, if they're coming to you with concerns, sit down, have the conversation, and genuinely consider them.
I can't find closure because I'm like, what happened to that person? I feel like I don't know who this person is. What happened to the person I felt safe with? Because who they became, sometimes I did not feel safe. And it just hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. And I can't wrap my head around it. I can't believe it. I feel like red pill men stole my future husband from me because I really, really thought this was the person. And even after talking about this, I'm like physically shaking because it was just so bad. Like at this point in my life, I don't want anybody. I don't want to be with anybody. If they're going to do that to me, if they could just treat me that way.
She clearly has some growing to do. We're going to get into that. But I want to point out something really interesting. Red pill content is often packaged as, be the protector, be the one who, makes women feel safe, so much so that they want to do X, Y, and Z for you in a relationship. And it's funny that after finding red pill content, she no longer finds her boyfriend safe when she did before. Just a little food for thought. Just a little bit of responsibility and accountability need to be taken in this video. Yeah, and she did by sort of mentioning her self-sabotaging episodes and her poor emotional regulation, but red pill content or red pill, ideas did not steal your future husband, right? People change and they morph and they adopt new ideas and ideology throughout the course of their life. And sometimes that's going to, vibe with you, and sometimes it's going to not vibe with you. Now, in a healthy relationship, hopefully your partner would take in these new ideas, sit down and have a conversation with you about the merit of those ideas, and then you can decide and compromise as to whether or not you adopt that into your relationship. It sounds like that is not what happened here. Like this guy got a fire hose of red pill content, started spewing it back at his girlfriend, and she was just too shocked to even engage in a conversation. It signals to me that the foundation of this relationship was probably not a healthy one, and the social media content and the hypothetical conversations did not help. Now let's get to the idea of hypothetical, which I said we would return to. If you are a man or woman and you are spending an awful lot of time on social media, it can start to morph the way that you view the real world. Social media is not a clear depiction of the real world. If you are constantly watching red pill content or leftist content, doesn't even really matter. You can start to think that the world looks a lot more like that than it actually does. And if you're watching Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate and whatever podcast and listening to all these Instagram baddies and OnlyFans models and 304s, as they call them, you can start to think that all women have the warning signs of being one of them. Now, of course, any woman could suddenly turn into an OnlyFans model or a 304, as the men call them, but it's not necessarily a clear depiction of reality. So if your reality starts to morph and then you start to bring that into your own relationship, I imagine somebody's going to be caught off guard. And the person who's going to be caught off guard is your significant other. You need to bring levity to the situation and balance and recognize that there is a massive difference between what you are viewing online, which is quite literally curated to bring drama and fire and be incendiary, and what your real life is, which is often more docile, a little less crazy than what you would see on a whatever podcast or a Fresh and Fit show. And you know why I have a feeling about this? It's because I've been through a very similar situation. When I was a leftist, my views on racism and patriarchy and women's rights and all these different things characterized the way that I viewed my reality. And I was getting a distorted vision of what that meant, and then taking that distorted vision and casting it out in front of me. I view all men as evil and patriarchal. I viewed all white people as racist. And was that the case? Absolutely not. It wasn't the case. And it wasn't until I was shown new ideas that I realized that maybe I had some reconciling to do. Maybe I need to put the puzzle pieces back together and get a different vision. Did I do that overnight? Absolutely not. And anybody who does do that overnight, you should beware of. And if her characterization of the situation is true, and this boy, within a matter of, a short amount of time, changed his entire ideology and worldview, she dodged a bullet. Nobody stole your future husband, baby. You dodged him. Because this guy, if what you're saying is true, clearly had a very shallow center or a shallow sense of self. He was still sort of putting it together, didn't have views that were foundational to who he was as a person, and found some really, glitzy ideas that sounded good to him and immediately adopted them and then threw it back into his own relationship. And that, my dear, is a red flag. You have your own, but he certainly has his. My friends, beware of anybody who changes their ideology overnight, for it means that they are easily influenced, and especially men. It is very curious that this man says that he's meant to be obeyed and he's meant to be the leader, but he has changed his ideology overnight. What type of leader is that to follow when one day he can wake up and be consumed by content that he's found on the internet? Well, guys, at the end of the day, it seems like this is a tale of two people who were not meant to be together. Maybe they both caused the breakup. Maybe the man did, maybe the woman did. Who knows? But it seems as though at this moment in time, they were not meant to be together. And that's okay. You do enter relationships in your youth, and sometimes you find out that this person is not for you, or they change and you realize that this new person is not for you, and that is okay. At least you've learned something about them, you've learned something about yourself, and you can move on with your life and hopefully grow. Now, what I would love in this situation, if I'm being selfish and nosy, it would be to see this guy's perspective play out in a video, and I would like to hear exactly how this relationship deteriorated from his point of view. Unfortunately, it's the internet, and we do not get that. But if you're a man watching this right now and you recognize something in that video that I didn't recognize, feel free to throw it in the comments and let me know something that I missed on her part. Or if you are agreeing with some of the things that I said, drop that in the comments down below. As always, I encourage healthy debate, so I love to hear from you guys. Duke it out, but do so respectfully. And if you like this video or the subject matter, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you, which is every single day. And I will see you next time.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.